I used to believe love was enough. That when two people promised forever, that promise was unbreakable. I believed in the way his hand fit perfectly around mine, the way he whispered, "I'll always protect you," against my forehead on our wedding night. I believed in him, in us. But now, when I look back, I realize the moment love begins to fade, it doesn't scream, it whispers, quietly, softly, until one day, the silence between two hearts becomes louder than any words could ever be. When I first met Daniel, I was 23, clumsy, and way too trusting for my own good. He worked in the same company, just a few floors above me in the finance department. I still remember the day he came down to the cafeteria and asked if the seat next to me was taken. It wasn't. From that moment, it never really was. He had this calm confidence about him, the kind that made people feel safe. When he looked at me, it felt like he could see through every wall I had built. And somehow, instead of breaking them down, he made me want to open them myself. Our love was quiet but steady. We didn't have grand romantic gestures or movie moments, but we had late-night takeouts, laughter echoing through our tiny apartment, his hand brushing mine while we cooked, our favorite shows on repeat. It wasn't perfect, but it felt real. We got married 3 years later in a small church, surrounded by close family and friends. I remember standing there, trembling in my white dress, while he promised to always come home to me. The words melted into my heart. He looked so sincere, so sure. For years, we built our life together, piece by piece. A little 2-bedroom house with pale yellow curtains and a garden he promised to take care of but never did. I didn't mind. I liked planting the flowers myself. We had Sunday mornings with pancakes and bad coffee, Friday nights watching old movies. It wasn't glamorous, but it was ours. I worked as a teacher, and Daniel's career in finance took off faster than we expected. He worked long hours, but I was proud of him. He always said, "I'm doing this for us for our future." And I believed him. I truly did. But slowly, so slowly I almost didn't notice, the air between us began to change. At first, it was small things. He started coming home later than usual. Not too late, but enough for me to be waiting at the window, glancing at the clock. When he finally walked in, I'd greet him with a smile, but his eyes always looked tired, distant. Then came the phone, always face down on the table, always locked. When I'd ask who he was texting, he'd say, "Work stuff, babe, you wouldn't be interested." He'd kiss my forehead and change the subject. I told myself not to overthink. Marriage was built on trust, wasn't it? I had no reason to doubt him. Until the nights got longer. One evening, as I set the table for dinner, I noticed the clock ticking louder than usual. It was past 9 p.m., the food had gone cold. My messages sat unread. My calls went straight to voicemail. I sat there in the quiet kitchen, staring at his untouched plate, the candle flickering low. For the first time, I felt something strange in my chest, not anger, not fear, something colder, a dull ache that whispered, "What if he's not coming home?" When he finally walked in past midnight, his shirt slightly wrinkled, he smelled faintly of perfume, one I didn't own. My heart dropped, but I forced a smile. "You're late," I said softly, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, the meeting ran over. You know how clients are," he replied, avoiding my eyes as he loosened his tie. I wanted to believe him. I wanted so badly to believe him, so I nodded and said nothing. That night, I lay next to him, staring at the ceiling, listening to his breathing. My mind screamed with questions, but my heart begged for silence. I didn't want to ruin what we had with suspicion. I told myself it was just work stress, that he still loved me. The next morning, he kissed my cheek before leaving and whispered, "You worry too much." But that whisper, meant to soothe, somehow deepened the hollow inside me. Days passed, then weeks. The warmth between us became polite smiles and mechanical routines. We spoke about groceries, bills, and schedules, but not about us. Every time I tried to bring it up, he'd say, "I'm just tired, okay? Don't start." And I'd shrink back, afraid of pushing him further away. Evenings that used to be filled with laughter became heavy with silence. I'd cook dinner, and he'd eat distractedly while scrolling through his phone. Sometimes I'd ask, "How was work?" And he'd reply with a flat "fine." Then one night, I walked past him on the couch and noticed the reflection of a message on his phone screen. It was gone before I could read it, but I caught a name, Clara. My stomach turned. I'd never heard that name before. "Who's Clara?" I asked, pretending to sound casual. He froze just for a second, but I saw it, the hesitation. "Oh, she's new at work, handles client accounts," he said too quickly, forcing a smile. "Why?" "Just asking," I murmured. He nodded and went back to his phone, but I couldn't shake the chill that ran through me. That night, when he went to shower, I sat on the edge of the bed staring at his phone on the nightstand. My hand hovered over it. My heart raced. I knew it was wrong to check. I knew what trust meant. But what if trust was already gone? Before I could decide, I heard the water stop. I quickly pulled my hand back, pretending to be asleep as he came out. He slipped into bed beside me, his damp hair brushing my shoulder. I felt his arm drape over me, but his touch didn't feel the same anymore. It felt heavy, like a lie pressing down on my skin. I wanted to cry, but I didn't. Instead, I closed my eyes and let the silence swallow me whole. The next few days, I tried to bring back our old life, made his favorite breakfast, planned a date night, but every effort felt one-sided. He'd cancel last minute, saying, "Work emergency, sorry babe." I started eating dinner alone, more often than not. One evening, while cleaning up, I found a receipt in his jacket pocket from a restaurant across town. 2 meals, expensive wine. Dated last Friday, the night he said he was working late. My hands shook as I held that small piece of paper. My chest tightened so hard I could barely breathe. I wanted to confront him, scream, demand the truth, but I didn't. Instead, I folded the receipt neatly and placed it in my drawer, like some quiet evidence of a crime I wasn't ready to admit existed. Because if I confronted it, it would become real. At work, I started losing focus. My students noticed. "Miss, are you okay?" one of them asked, and I smiled weakly, saying, "Just tired." Everyone thought we were the perfect couple. We had matching smiles on social media, anniversary posts filled with heart emojis. But those pictures were just memories of a love that was slowly bleeding out in silence. One night, my best friend Mia came over. She had that concerned look that only someone who loves you can have. "You've been quiet lately," she said. "Is everything okay with Daniel?" I wanted to tell her everything. The late nights, the perfume, the receipt, the name Clara. But instead, I forced a laugh. "He's just busy with work," I said. Mia tilted her head. "Busy men still find time for the people they love, you know." I looked down at my hands, twisting my wedding ring. "He loves me," I whispered, more to convince myself than her. She reached out and squeezed my hand. "I hope so," she said softly. That night after she left, I sat on the living room floor surrounded by wedding photos, our smiling faces frozen in moments of joy that felt like they belonged to strangers. I traced his face in one of the pictures, tears blurring my vision. "Where did you go, Daniel?" I whispered. "When did you stop being mine?" The clock ticked past midnight. He still wasn't home. I called him once, no answer, twice, still nothing. I stared at my phone, thumb hovering over our shared GPS app. We had set it up years ago as a sweet gesture. "Just in case," he had said, smiling. I opened it, hesitating. The map loaded slowly. And then there it was, his location not at the office, not even close. A chill ran through my body. My heart started to pound so loudly I could hear it in my ears. He was somewhere he shouldn't be. I wanted to believe it was innocent, that maybe he'd gone to grab dinner or visit a friend. But something deep inside me, the same voice I'd been silencing for months, finally screamed the truth. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. That was the moment everything changed. The moment the woman I used to be, the trusting, loving wife, started to crumble. And I had no idea that what I was about to discover would destroy everything I thought I knew about love. It's strange how pain doesn't arrive with a bang. It seeps in slowly, like water through a crack in the wall. You don't even notice it at first. You go about your days pretending everything's fine, until one morning you wake up and realize your whole house is flooded. After that night, the one when I saw Daniel's GPS blinking miles away from his office, I told myself there had to be an explanation. Maybe a client meeting. Maybe he was helping a friend. Anything but what my heart already knew. I didn't confront him. I just watched. For weeks, I became an observer in my own marriage. I noticed how he smiled at his phone when he thought I wasn't looking. How his shirt sometimes smelled faintly of a perfume that wasn't mine, sweet and floral, like jasmine. I started memorizing those little things, the evidence of someone else's presence in his life. The worst part wasn't the lying. It was how normal he made it look. He'd still kiss my cheek in the mornings, still text me midday, "Don't forget lunch. How's class?" like nothing was wrong. He played the role of a perfect husband, and I played along because the truth terrified me. One Friday evening, he said he had to work late again. "Another meeting?" I asked, trying to sound casual. He didn't even look up from tying his shoes. "Yeah, big project deadline, might be a long night. Do you want me to wait for you? I can keep dinner warm." He shook his head. No, don't bother, eat first. I'll grab something on the way." I nodded, forcing a smile. "Okay." But as the door closed behind him, the silence in the house felt suffocating. The ticking clock on the wall mocked me. I stood there, hands trembling, staring at the handle he had just turned, wondering if I'd ever be brave enough to follow him, to see where he really went. That night, I tried reading a book, watching TV, doing anything to keep my mind off him. But the curiosity, the pain burned like acid. Around 10:30, I opened the GPS app again. His location showed a hotel. For a moment, I couldn't breathe. The world around me blurred as if everything I knew was suddenly wrong. I blinked hard, thinking maybe it was a glitch. I refreshed the app. The same result. The same blinking dot, sitting motionless in a hotel parking lot across town. I dropped the phone. My legs gave out beneath me. I remember crawling to the couch, gripping the cushion like it could hold me together. My mind spun through every memory, our wedding vows, our anniversaries, his laugh, his promises. All of it twisted into a cruel joke. He came home past midnight again. I watched him from the doorway as he took off his jacket, humming lightly, acting as though nothing had happened. I wanted to scream, to throw that phone in his face, but I didn't. "Long night?" I asked softly. He froze for just a second. "Yeah, you know how it is." I nodded. My lips trembled, but I smiled anyway. Because if I showed him the truth of how much he was breaking me, maybe he'd walk out for good, and I wasn't ready to lose him yet. After he went to bed, I sat alone on the kitchen floor, hugging my knees, tears dripping silently onto the tiles. I hated myself for not leaving, but love does that. It traps you inside your own denial. The next morning, I looked in the mirror and barely recognized myself. My eyes were puffy, my smile forced. I told myself, "You're being paranoid. Don't destroy your marriage over assumptions." But deep down, I knew. Over the next few days, I watched him more closely. His phone became an extension of his body. He never left it unattended, not even in the bathroom. When it buzzed, he'd glance at me before answering. And once, I caught a glimpse of a message preview. "Can't stop thinking about last night." My heart stopped. He must have seen my face pale because he quickly turned the screen away and said, "Work message." "Work," I whispered. That sounded personal. He glared at me, something I had never seen before. "You really need to stop being so suspicious. It's not attractive." That hurt more than I could explain. After he left that morning, I stayed home from work. I couldn't focus, couldn't move. I just sat there staring at my wedding ring, twisting it on my finger. I wanted to tear it off, but couldn't. It wasn't just metal, it was the last piece of the life I thought I had. Later that week, I decided to talk to him calmly. Maybe, just maybe, there was still something left to save. When he came home, I set dinner, lit candles, trying to recreate our old warmth. He looked at the table and sighed. "What's this?" "I just thought we could have dinner together, like we used to." He rubbed his temples. "Not tonight, okay? I had a long day." "Daniel, please," my voice cracked. "We haven't really talked in weeks. I feel like you're a stranger lately." He finally looked at me, tired eyes, no warmth. "You always say that. Maybe if you stopped imagining problems, there wouldn't be any." My throat tightened. "Imagining?" He shrugged. "You're acting crazy, Sarah, checking my phone, tracking me." "I tracked you once, because you were at a hotel." The words burst out before I could stop them. His face darkened. "You followed me." "I didn't follow you, Jesus Christ, Sarah, do you hear yourself? I just want the truth." He slammed his hand on the table, the sound echoing through the kitchen. You don't trust me anymore, do you? Tears filled my eyes. How can I when you keep lying? He looked at me for a long, painful moment. Then his voice softened, dangerously calm. If you really think I'm cheating, then maybe you don't know me at all. He grabbed his keys and walked out, leaving me standing there shaking. That was the first night he didn't come home at all. I stayed up till dawn, the house silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Every creak, every car that passed outside made my heart leap with hope, then fall again. When I finally dozed off near morning, I dreamed of him holding another woman's hand, laughing the way he used to with me. When he returned the next evening, he acted as if nothing happened. Sorry, crashed at the office, didn't want to wake you. I stared at him, trying to find even a flicker of guilt in his eyes. There was none, only exhaustion and distance. Something inside me broke that day, not with a scream, but with silence. In the following weeks, I stopped asking questions. I stopped waiting for explanations. I moved through the days like a ghost, teaching my classes, coming home to a house that no longer felt like mine. At night, I'd hear him in the shower and imagine the water washing away someone else's perfume. I'd picture her face, the way he must have looked at her, and my chest would tighten until I couldn't breathe. I started keeping a journal, a place to pour the words I couldn't say aloud. Each entry became shorter, emptier, until one night I wrote only 2 words: he's gone. One Sunday morning, I found him sitting on the couch, scrolling through his phone. I sat beside him quietly, waiting for him to look up. He didn't. I miss us, I whispered. He exhaled slowly, not meeting my gaze. You're making this harder than it needs to be, Sarah. What do you mean? He finally looked at me then, his eyes cold. Maybe we need some space. You're not the same. You're always crying, always accusing me of something. Because you've changed, I said, voice trembling. You come home late, you lie to me, you. He cut me off sharply. You're imagining things, you've become paranoid. His words sliced through me. For a second, I actually doubted myself. Maybe I was going crazy. Maybe grief was making me see things that weren't there. But that same night, as he showered, his phone buzzed again. My heart pounded as I picked it up. One message preview flashed across the screen. Miss you already. Last night was perfect. That was all I needed, proof, the truth I'd been afraid to face. When he came out, I was sitting on the edge of the bed, holding his phone in my trembling hands. He froze. Sarah, what are you doing? Who is she? My voice was barely a whisper. He didn't answer. The silence that followed was louder than any confession. I stood up slowly. How long? Sarah, please. How long? I screamed this time, the sound ripping through my throat. His face fell. A few months. The room spun. My knees gave way, and I sank onto the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. He tried to touch me, but I pushed him away. Don't you dare touch me. I'm sorry, he whispered. It just happened, I didn't mean to. Didn't mean to, I looked up at him, tears streaming down my face. You chose this, Daniel. Every lie, every late night, you chose her over me. He buried his face in his hands. I still love you. I laughed bitterly. No, you love who I used to be. You love my forgiveness, my silence. You don't love me. For the first time, he had nothing to say. That night I slept in the guest room. The house felt colder than ever. Every sound echoed like a memory. In the morning, I woke to the smell of coffee. He was in the kitchen, pretending everything was normal. We can fix this, he said softly. But some things, once broken, don't fit back the same way. I looked at him, this man I had loved more than myself, and realized I didn't even recognize him anymore. The cracks in our marriage weren't cracks anymore. They were canyons, and I was standing on one side, watching him drift further and further away. There comes a moment when pain becomes so familiar, it stops feeling sharp. It turns quiet, heavy like fog settling over your soul. You breathe it in, live with it, until you forget what it felt like to be light again. That's how I felt in the days after Daniel's confession. He said he was sorry. He said it was a mistake. He said it didn't mean anything. But how could something that destroyed me mean nothing? For a while, I tried to pretend we could fix it. We went through the motions, dinners filled with awkward silence, forced smiles when neighbors waved. He promised he'd end it. She doesn't matter, he said. You're my wife, you're my home. I wanted to believe him so badly that I convinced myself I did. Because the alternative, losing him completely, felt like losing the air I breathed. But deep inside, something kept whispering, he's lying. Every time his phone buzzed, my heart jumped. Every time he said he had to stay late, my chest tightened. Love had turned into constant fear. One evening, I made his favorite dinner, lasagna with extra cheese, the way he liked it. I wanted to remind him of what we once had, to rekindle something. He barely touched it. I told you I'm cutting back on carbs, he said flatly, scrolling on his phone. I forced a smile. You used to love this. People change, Sarah. He didn't even look up. People change. The words hit harder than he knew. After dinner, he said he needed to go out, some client drinks last minute. I didn't ask questions. I just nodded. But as the door closed behind him, my heart started to race. Something inside me snapped. I couldn't keep living like this, half awake, half dead, waiting for him to choose me again. I needed to know. My hands trembled as I grabbed my phone and opened the GPS tracker we'd set up years ago. I watched the little blue dot move slowly across the map, not toward his office, not even close. He was driving toward the east side of town, a quiet neighborhood near the lake. My chest tightened. I stared at the screen, the dot blinking steadily as if mocking me. I could have called him, I could have screamed, but instead I grabbed my keys and drove. The sky was heavy with rain clouds, the streets glistening under flickering streetlights. My hands gripped the steering wheel so tightly that my knuckles turned white. The entire drive, my heart pounded so loud it drowned out the radio. When I turned onto the narrow street, my headlights caught rows of small, cozy houses. Then I saw it, his car, parked outside a small brick home with a white fence. My breath hitched. The GPS hadn't lied. For a moment, I couldn't move. I just sat there, staring at the car I'd washed with him countless Sundays, the car that carried our memories, road trips, laughter, arguments, everything. Now it was parked in front of another woman's house. I turned off the engine and sat in the dark, rain tapping gently against the windshield. The wipers made slow, rhythmic movements, like the heartbeat of something dying. Then the front door opened. And there he was. Daniel stepped out, his shirt slightly unbuttoned, his hair messy in a way that wasn't from work. He was smiling, a real smile, the kind I hadn't seen in months. And then she followed him. She was younger, beautiful in that effortless way. Her laughter floated through the rain as she handed him something, a jacket maybe. He leaned in and kissed her. Right there, in the open. My world stopped. It was as if every sound, the rain, the distant traffic, even my heartbeat, vanished. I sat frozen, staring at them, my fingers clutching the steering wheel so hard they ached. He kissed her again, tenderly, like he used to kiss me. I didn't scream, I didn't cry, I didn't even move. My body was numb, but my mind was shattering into 1,000 pieces. I had imagined this moment 100 times, wondered how I'd react, what I'd say, but nothing prepared me for the real thing. Because when you see the person you love giving what was once yours to someone else, it kills something inside you forever. When they finally went back inside, I just sat there. The rain blurred the world outside, and for a moment it looked like everything was melting, the houses, the trees, my life. I don't know how long I stayed there. Maybe minutes, maybe hours. Time didn't exist anymore. Eventually, I drove home, hands shaking, headlights cutting through the rain like ghostly veins. I don't even remember the drive. I just remember pulling into our driveway, turning off the engine, and sitting there in silence. When I walked inside, the house felt foreign. His jacket on the chair, his shoes by the door, the faint smell of his cologne, it all made me want to scream. I sank to the floor in the hallway and finally let go. The sobs came out raw and broken, echoing through the empty house. My chest hurt from the force of it, but I couldn't stop. Every memory, every lie, every promise crashed down at once. How could he destroy everything so easily? When the tears finally stopped, I felt hollow, completely empty. I stared at my reflection in the dark window, red eyes, trembling lips, a stranger staring back. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the couch until dawn, replaying what I'd seen over and over, hoping that somehow it would start to make sense. It didn't. At 6 a.m., the door opened. Daniel walked in, looking tired but composed, like someone returning from a long night at work. "Morning," he said casually, hanging his coat. Something inside me snapped. "Where were you?" He looked up, surprised by my tone. "I told you meeting ran late." "Really?" My voice was shaking. "Because your meeting looked a lot like a house near the lake." His face froze. The silence that followed was unbearable. "Sarah." "I saw you," I whispered. "I saw you with her." His mouth opened, but no words came out. For a moment I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. "How long?" I demanded. He sighed, rubbing his face. "It's not what you think." I laughed bitterly. "Then what is it, Daniel? You were kissing her. Tell me what I think I saw." "She needed someone, okay. Things have been complicated between us." "Complicated?" I repeated, my voice trembling. "We're married, Daniel. We built a life together. How do you just throw that away?" He looked at me, guilt flickering across his face. "I didn't mean to hurt you. It just happened. I didn't plan it." "You don't accidentally fall into someone's bed," I screamed, my voice cracking. He flinched but didn't respond. The silence stretched between us, thick, unbearable. Finally, I whispered, "Do you love her?" He hesitated. That hesitation was my answer. My knees went weak. I grabbed the edge of the table to steady myself. "Oh God." "Sarah, I'm sorry," he said, stepping toward me. I backed away. Don't you dare come near me." "I'll end it," he said quickly. "I swear I'll end it, just give me time." "Time?" I laughed through tears. "You had months of time, and you spent them with her." I turned away, tears streaming down my face. He reached out as if to touch me, but I stepped back again. "I can't even look at you," I whispered. "Every time I close my eyes, I see her." "Please, Sarah," he begged. "Don't do this. Don't throw everything away." I looked at him, my heart breaking all over again. "I didn't throw anything away, Daniel. You did." He didn't respond. He just stood there, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. That night, he slept in the guest room. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, the weight of his betrayal pressing down on my chest like a stone. Every sound from the next room, every movement made me sick. In the morning, he was gone. A note on the counter read, "I'm sorry, I'll fix this." But some things can't be fixed. The days that followed were a blur. I went through life on autopilot, teaching, smiling when I had to, crying when no one was watching. The world moved on, but I was stuck in that rainy street, watching the man I loved kiss someone else. Sometimes I'd stare at my phone, half expecting him to text. Sometimes I'd pick up the ring on my finger and wonder when it became just a piece of metal. The love I once believed in, the kind that could survive anything, was gone. All that remained was the memory of a promise whispered under wedding lights, and the haunting image of two lovers under the rain. And I realized heartbreak doesn't kill you all at once. It kills you slowly, one breath at a time. The morning after seeing him with her, I woke up feeling like I aged years overnight. My body was there, but my soul was somewhere else, a broken, quiet place that even I couldn't reach. I moved through the motions of the day like a shadow, eyes swollen from crying, voice hollow. The sunlight coming through the kitchen window felt cruel, almost mocking. How could the world still be bright when mine had turned so dark? Daniel came home that evening like nothing had happened. He set down his keys, loosened his tie, and looked at me with tired eyes. "We need to talk," he said. I didn't respond. I just stood there, arms crossed, waiting. He sighed. "I told you I was going to fix this." I laughed, a bitter sound that didn't sound like me. "Fix what, Daniel? Our marriage, or your little secret life with her?" He winced. "Sarah, please." "No," my voice cracked, tears already burning behind my eyes. "Don't please me. Don't act like you didn't know exactly what you were doing. You destroyed us." He ran a hand through his hair, frustration rising in his face. "I made a mistake, okay? I screwed up. I've been under pressure, work, been insane, and she was just there." My heart clenched. "She was just there," I repeated, voice trembling. "That's all it takes now, a woman who's just there." "It wasn't about you," he said quietly. "Of course it was about me," I shouted, pounding my fist against my chest. "Everything we built, everything I gave you, you threw it away because you wanted something new, something easy. Don't you dare tell me it wasn't about me." He stayed silent. That silence was worse than any shouting could have been. I wiped my tears with shaking hands. Do you love her? I whispered again. He hesitated, just like the first time, and that tiny pause was all I needed to hear. My knees buckled. I slid to the floor, sobbing uncontrollably. I could feel my whole body shaking, my chest tight with pain so sharp it made me nauseous. Why, Daniel? I choked out. Was I not enough? Was our life not enough for you? He knelt beside me, trying to touch my arm, but I pulled away. Don't, I said weakly. Don't you dare touch me. I didn't plan it, he said again, voice cracking. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was lost, and she listened. She made me feel seen. I looked up at him, disbelief and disgust mixing in my eyes. Seen? I gave you everything. My time, my love, my loyalty. I held you when your world fell apart, and now you say you needed someone else to make you feel seen. He buried his face in his hands. I don't know how to fix this. You can't, I whispered. The air between us was thick, years of love collapsing into something unrecognizable. I couldn't look at him without seeing her face. The woman he kissed. The woman who now held pieces of him that once belonged to me. For the next few days, we barely spoke. He'd leave early, come home late. I'd sit at the table, pretending to eat, pretending to breathe. The house that once felt full of laughter now echoed with silence. Even the walls seemed to mourn. Then one night he came home drunk. His tie was crooked, his eyes bloodshot. He slammed the door behind him and stumbled into the living room. Sarah, he slurred, you have to forgive me, please. I stood from the couch, arms wrapped around myself. You're drunk, Daniel, go to bed. No, he said, shaking his head. We can fix this, I'll do better. He stopped mid-sentence, tears filling his eyes. I can't lose you. I took a step closer, anger boiling beneath my grief. Then why did you cheat? He stared at me, lost for words. I don't know, he whispered. Wrong answer, I snapped. You do know, you made that choice every night you went to her. Every time you lied to me, every time you kissed her, you made a choice. He sank onto the couch, burying his face in his hands. I was lonely, okay. My laughter came out hollow, almost hysterical. Lonely? You had me. I was right here every damn day trying to hold us together while you were out there holding her. He didn't respond, just sobbed quietly into his palms. Something inside me softened for a second. Seeing him like that, broken, guilty, human, it hurt even more. Because despite everything, a part of me still loved him. And that was the cruelest part of all. I sat across from him, tears falling silently. Do you even know what you've done to me? I asked softly. I can't eat. I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes, I see you with her. Every touch, every word, it's all poison now. He looked up, eyes red. I'll do anything. Therapy, counseling, whatever you want. I shook my head. You can't rebuild something you burned to ashes, Daniel. The next morning, he packed a small bag. He said he was going to stay with a friend for a few days to give me space. Space, the irony wasn't lost on me. Space was all I'd had for months between us, in our bed, in every glance and word that went unspoken. When the door closed behind him, I collapsed again. The silence in the house was unbearable. I wandered through the rooms like a ghost, our bedroom, where we once whispered promises, the kitchen, where I used to wait for him to come home, the hallway, where I'd stood crying the night I tracked his GPS. Every inch of that house was haunted by memories of us. Over the next week, I tried to live normally. I went to work, smiled at my students, said I'm fine to everyone who asked. But every night, I sat on the couch staring at the door, half hoping he'd walk back in, half praying he wouldn't. One evening, Mia came over. She took one look at me and gasped, "You look exhausted." I forced a smile. "I'm fine." She frowned. "Don't say that, you're not fine. What happened?" I hesitated. Then, for the first time, I told her everything. The affair, the lies, the night by the lake. By the time I finished, tears were streaming down my face. Mia's eyes filled too. She reached across the table and held my hand tightly. "You don't deserve this, Sarah. None of it." "I know," I whispered, "but knowing doesn't stop it from hurting." She squeezed my hand. "Then you have to decide what's next. Staying will destroy you." After she left, I sat in the dark for hours. Her words echoed in my head. Staying will destroy you. But leaving would destroy me too. A few days later, Daniel came back. He looked different, tired, remorseful, maybe even scared. He stood in the doorway like he wasn't sure he was allowed inside. "Can we talk?" he asked softly. I didn't answer. He took a step closer. I ended it with her for good. I wanted to believe him, but I couldn't. The trust that once bound us had turned to dust. "I'm not sure that matters anymore," I said quietly. He looked at me, pain flickering in his eyes. "Please, Sarah, I'll spend the rest of my life making it up to you." I shook my head. "You can't make up for this, you can't erase it." He sank to his knees in front of me, tears streaming down his face. "I love you. I was stupid and selfish, but I love you. Please don't give up on me." His words hit me like a wave. I wanted to believe him so badly, to reach out and hold him, to rewind time to when love was simple. But all I could see was that house by the lake, that kiss, that betrayal. "I don't know if I can love you the same way anymore," I whispered. He looked up at me, devastated. "Please, Sarah." I stood slowly. "I need to think." And then, before I could stop myself, I walked out. The air outside was cold, biting. I walked without direction, tears blurring my vision, until I found myself standing by the river. The water was calm, reflecting the streetlights in soft ripples. I stared at it for a long time, thinking about everything I'd lost and everything I'd given up to keep a love that no longer existed. That night, I realized something. Love wasn't supposed to feel like begging for scraps. It wasn't supposed to hurt this much. When I got home, Daniel was sitting on the couch, waiting. I looked at him, this man I'd built my world around, and I saw not my husband, but a stranger wearing his face. "I can't do this anymore," I said quietly. He stood, panic in his eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I need to find myself again," I whispered. "Because somewhere between loving you and forgiving you, I lost who I was." He stepped forward, tears streaming. "Please don't go." But this time, I didn't waver. I walked past him, up the stairs, and began packing a bag. My hands shook with every folded shirt, every memory. Downstairs, I could hear him crying, the same way I had cried for weeks. When I came back down, I paused by the door. He looked up at me, eyes red, voice breaking. "Sarah, please, I'll change, I swear." I nodded slowly. "Maybe you will, but it'll be too late for us." Then I opened the door and stepped out into the cold night, the sound of his sobs following me into the dark. For the first time in months, I felt both terrified and free. When I left that night, I didn't know where I was going. I just drove. The streets blurred past, and the city lights shimmered like ghosts in my rearview mirror. My hands gripped the steering wheel, my heart pounding so hard it hurt. I didn't cry. Not then. I'd already cried enough tears to fill an ocean. I ended up at a small motel on the edge of town, the kind of place that smelled like stale coffee and loneliness. The woman at the front desk didn't ask questions when she saw my trembling hands and swollen eyes. She just slid a key across the counter and said, "Room 12." That night, I sat on the bed staring at the peeling wallpaper. My wedding ring felt heavy on my finger. I twisted it again and again until finally I took it off. My hand felt naked without it, but lighter too. I placed it on the nightstand beside me. For the first time in years, I slept without hearing Daniel's breathing next to me. The silence was unbearable, and yet strangely peaceful. Morning light crept through the thin curtains. I woke up disoriented, half expecting to see him beside me. When I realized where I was, the pain came rushing back, sharp and cold. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my reflection in the mirror across the room. My eyes were swollen, my face pale, but what hurt the most was the emptiness in my gaze. That was the morning I realized heartbreak doesn't always scream. Sometimes, it whispers. It tells you quietly that the life you knew is over. Over the next few days, I stayed in that motel, avoiding calls, avoiding people. Daniel texted constantly at first. "Please come home. We can fix this. I'm lost without you." Then silence. And that silence cut deeper than any word ever could. Eventually, I went back home, not to stay, just to pick up a few things. When I walked through the door, the air felt different. Heavy, familiar, yet foreign. His jacket still hung on the hook. The faint smell of his cologne lingered in the air. It was like walking into a memory that refused to die. Daniel wasn't there, but on the table I found a note. "I miss you, please talk to me." I stared at it for a long time, then folded it gently and tucked it into my bag. I didn't know why. Maybe because even broken words from him still felt like pieces of my life. I packed some clothes, a few books, and my journal. As I was about to leave, I saw our wedding photo on the wall, us smiling, holding hands, so happy, so sure. I stood there for a long time, tears streaming down my face. Then I took the photo down and placed it face down on the table. I couldn't look at it anymore. I moved into a small apartment not far from the school. It was quiet, almost too quiet, but it was mine. The first few nights were the hardest. I'd wake up reaching for him, only to find an empty pillow. Every sound outside, footsteps, a door closing, laughter, felt like a reminder of what I'd lost. I tried to fill the silence with noise, the TV, music, anything, but nothing drowned out the echo of his voice in my head. The apologies, the lies, the memories. Days turned into weeks. I started going to work again, though I felt like a shell of myself. My students noticed. One of them, a sweet girl named Emily, asked one afternoon, "Miss, are you sad?" I smiled softly, blinking back tears. "A little," I admitted. She thought for a second, then said, "My mom says sad means your heart needs rest." That made me laugh, the first real laugh I'd had in weeks. "Your mom's very wise," I told her. But that night, when I got home, her words echoed in my mind. Maybe sadness was a kind of rest, the body's way of forcing you to stop, to heal. Daniel called again, a few days later. I stared at his name on the screen for a long time before answering. "Sarah," he said, his voice breaking slightly, "I miss you." I closed my eyes. "You said that already." "I know, but it's true. I'm so sorry." Silence, I didn't know what to say. "I ended things with her," he continued. "I haven't spoken to her in weeks. I'm seeing a therapist. I'm trying, Sarah. Please, I just want a chance to make things right." I swallowed hard. "You can't make things right, Daniel. You can only make things different." He didn't answer. "I don't know if I can ever trust you again," I whispered. "I understand," he said quietly, "but I'll wait for as long as it takes." I hung up before I could break again. After that, I tried to move forward slowly, painfully. I started journaling every night. At first, it was just scattered words, hurt, empty, lost, but as time passed, the words changed. Healing, trying, breathing. Mia visited often. She'd bring food, sit with me on the couch, and just let me talk. Sometimes I'd cry, sometimes we'd sit in silence. She never judged. She never rushed me. One evening, she said softly, "You don't owe him forgiveness, you know." I looked down at my hands. "I know, but part of me still loves him." She nodded. "Of course you do. Love doesn't just vanish because someone breaks it, but loving him doesn't mean you have to destroy yourself to keep him." Her words stayed with me. I tried to rebuild my life piece by piece. I started taking walks after work, cooking for one, learning to enjoy my own company. The nights were still lonely, but they didn't hurt as much. Slowly, the silence started to feel like peace instead of punishment. Then one evening, as I was grading papers, I heard a knock on the door. It was Daniel. He looked thinner, paler. His eyes were tired but softer somehow. He held a small box in his hands. "I'm sorry for coming unannounced," he said quietly. I needed to see you." I hesitated, then stepped aside. He walked in slowly, looking around my apartment, my new life. "It's nice," he said, "peaceful." I nodded, "That's the point." He smiled faintly, then handed me the box. "I thought you should have this." Inside was my wedding ring, polished, clean. It glimmered under the light. "I found it on the nightstand," he said. "I thought maybe one day you'd want it back, even if it's not to wear." I stared at it, my throat tightening. "I'm not asking for you to come home," he said softly. "I just wanted to tell you that I'm sorry, really sorry, and that I hope you find peace, even if it's not with me." Tears filled my eyes. For the first time, he wasn't begging or defending himself. He was just honest. "Thank you," I whispered, "for saying that." He nodded, eyes glistening. "You were the best thing that ever happened to me, Sarah. I just realized it too late." And then he left. After he was gone, I sat there staring at the ring in my hand. It felt cold, heavy, but not as painful as before. I placed it back in the box and tucked it away in a drawer. That night, I cried again, but it was different this time. Not out of despair, but out of release. The kind of cry that comes when you finally start letting go. Months passed. The seasons changed. The pain didn't disappear, but it dulled. I started to remember who I was before I became his wife, before I lost myself trying to keep him happy. Sometimes I'd still think of him. A scent, a song, a place would bring back memories. And for a moment, I'd feel that old ache again, but it no longer controlled me. It became just another part of my story, one I could finally bear to tell. People say time heals all wounds. I don't think that's true. Time doesn't heal, it teaches you how to live with the scars. And mine's mine reminded me of everything I survived. One evening, I went to the lake, the same one near where I'd found him with her. The water was calm, reflecting the orange glow of sunset. I stood there, breathing in the cool air, and whispered softly, "Goodbye." Not to him, not even to us, but to the version of me who believed love meant sacrifice at any cost. Because now I knew better. Love isn't supposed to break you, it's supposed to hold you, and if it doesn't, you have to learn how to hold yourself. That night, for the first time in a long time, I slept peacefully. For a while, life settled into a strange kind of calm. Not happiness exactly, but stillness, the quiet after a storm. I went to work, came home, cooked simple meals, and learned to fill my evenings without him. The emptiness was still there, lingering like a shadow, but it didn't suffocate me anymore. It just existed, a dull ache where love used to live. Sometimes I'd still get messages from Daniel. Simple things at first, "Hope you're okay," or "Saw your favorite movie on TV tonight." I'd stare at them for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen before deleting them. I couldn't reply. I couldn't open that door again. But love is cruel. Even when you close the door, it finds its way back through the cracks. One cold evening, I came home from work to find him waiting outside my building. He stood there under the flickering streetlight, hands in his pockets, shoulders slumped. He looked smaller somehow. Broken. "Sarah," he said softly when I approached. My heart stuttered. "What are you doing here?" "I just wanted to see you, one last time." I hesitated. Part of me wanted to tell him to leave, to walk away and never come back. But another part, the part that still remembered how his hand used to fit perfectly in mine, couldn't. So I sighed and said, "Come in." Inside, he looked around the small apartment. "You've made this place feel like home," he said quietly. "It is home," I replied. He nodded, then looked at me with eyes full of regret. "I'm not expecting forgiveness. I just needed you to know I've been trying. Therapy, quitting drinking, even switched departments at work. I haven't spoken to her in months." I said nothing. He stepped closer. "I miss you every day, Sarah. Not the idea of you, the way you used to hum while cooking, the way you laughed at terrible jokes. I miss us." Hearing those words hurt more than I expected. Because for a second, I missed us too, the version of us before everything went wrong. I turned away. "Daniel, you can't keep doing this. You can't keep coming back every time your guilt gets heavy." "It's not guilt," he said quickly. "It's love." I laughed softly, bitterly. "Love, you don't destroy what you love." He swallowed hard. "I know, that's why I hate myself every day." The silence that followed was thick, heavy with everything we weren't saying. "Why are you really here?" I asked. He hesitated. Then he pulled something from his pocket, a small velvet box. My breath caught. "Don't," I whispered. "I'm not asking you to marry me again," he said. "I just wanted to give you this. It's the ring you lost years ago, the one from our honeymoon. I found it in the old drawer when I was packing my things." He opened the box, revealing the simple gold band I'd thought was gone forever. For a moment, I forgot how to breathe. "Daniel." He smiled sadly. "You used to say it was your good luck charm." I nodded, tears burning behind my eyes. It was, until luck ran out. He placed the box gently on the table. "I know I don't deserve another chance, but if there's even a small part of you that still feels something, just know I'll never stop trying to be the man you needed." He turned toward the door, and for a moment I almost stopped him. Almost. But the truth was, loving him again would only mean losing myself again. So I said softly, "Good night, Daniel." He paused, nodded once, and left. When the door closed, I sank onto the couch, covering my face with my hands. My heart felt torn in two, half wanting to believe him, half knowing better. For days after that, I couldn't shake the memory of his face. The sadness in his eyes haunted me. I'd tell myself I was doing the right thing, but the nights were long and quiet, and sometimes, in that silence, I caught myself missing him. Missing the way he used to say my name like it was a prayer. Then, one evening, I ran into him at the grocery store. It was so mundane, almost absurd, the kind of place you shouldn't meet the person who once broke your heart. He was standing in the cereal aisle, staring blankly at a box of granola. "Daniel," I said before I could stop myself. He turned, surprise flashing across his face, then something softer. "Hey." I forced a smile. "Hey." For a moment, neither of us knew what to say. The air between us was heavy with unspoken memories. "You look good," he said finally. "Thanks." I glanced at the basket in his hand, milk, pasta, wine. "Still cooking for one." He smiled faintly, still trying. I nodded, then turned to leave. But as I walked away, he said quietly, "I'm sorry again, for everything." I looked back, I know. And that was it. A small, fragile piece, two people standing in a grocery aisle, finally admitting that love wasn't enough to save them. But fate has a cruel sense of humor. A week later, I got a call from the hospital. Daniel had been in a car accident. Nothing fatal, but serious enough to shake me to my core. I remember driving there with trembling hands, heart pounding, memories flashing in my mind, every fight, every kiss, every promise. When I saw him lying there, bruised but alive, something inside me broke all over again. "Hey," he whispered when he saw me. His voice was weak, but that same familiar warmth was there. "You came." "Of course I did," I said, tears welling up. He tried to smile. I didn't know who else to call. I sat beside him, holding his hand. For a moment, it felt like old times, the way we used to fit together without trying. "Don't scare me like that again," I whispered. "I'll try not to," he said, half laughing, half groaning. We talked for a while about small things, safe things, but when I stood to leave, he gripped my hand tighter. "Sarah," he said softly, "I meant what I said before. I'll always love you, even if you never come back." Tears blurred my vision. I leaned down, kissed his forehead, and whispered, "I know." When I left the hospital, the air felt different, heavy, electric. I realized then that love isn't something you can just turn off. You can bury it, ignore it, curse it, but it stays. It lingers in the spaces between what was and what could have been. For the next few weeks, I visited him while he recovered. We didn't talk about the past. We just existed in the same space again. It was strange, peaceful, but fragile, like standing on glass. One afternoon, as I was leaving, he said quietly, "I've been thinking, maybe we could start over slowly. Not as a couple, just as people." I looked at him, studying his face, the lines, the scars, the familiar softness that once felt like home. "Maybe," I said, "but not now." He nodded, understanding. When he was finally discharged, I helped him home. But this time, I didn't stay. I dropped him off, gave him a small smile, and drove away. That night, I stood in front of my mirror, staring at my reflection. The woman staring back looked tired but stronger, wiser. Her eyes still carried sadness, but they also held something new, peace. I picked up my journal and wrote, "Healing isn't linear. Some days I miss him, some days I don't, but every day I choose myself a little more." Weeks passed. I saw Daniel a few more times at the store, at mutual friends' gatherings. We'd exchange polite smiles, small talk. There was no hatred left, no anger, just acceptance. But one night, everything came full circle. I got a message from him. "Thank you for not giving up on me completely. Even if it's not love anymore, your kindness saved me." I stared at the message for a long time, tears falling silently. Then I typed back one final reply. We both saved each other, just not in the way we expected. And that was it. That night, I went to bed with tears in my eyes, but this time, they weren't from pain. They were from gratitude. For the lessons, for the memories, for the strength I didn't know I had. Love had broken me, but somehow, in its ruins, I'd found myself again. It's strange how life moves on, quietly, without asking if you're ready. The sun rises, people laugh, the world keeps spinning, and one day you realize the pain that once consumed you has become a scar you can finally touch without flinching. Months passed. The apartment that once felt hollow began to feel like home. I learned to live alone, to enjoy mornings filled with coffee and silence, to cook for one without feeling lonely, to walk into an empty room and not ache for what used to be there. I was still teaching, still showing up every day with a smile that felt real again. My students' laughter had become my favorite sound. It reminded me that there was still joy in the world, small, fragile, but real. Sometimes, on the way home, I'd pass by the old house Daniel and I used to share. The curtains had changed, the garden looked cared for. A new family lived there now. A little girl's laughter would echo from the porch, and instead of breaking me, it made me smile. That house wasn't mine anymore. Neither was he, and that was okay. Daniel and I still talked occasionally, not about love, but about life. He'd text me about a new project at work, or I'd send a picture of a book I thought he'd like. The conversations were short, careful, like two people walking barefoot over broken glass, but there was a tenderness in them, a quiet respect. He was trying, I could tell, and maybe in another lifetime that effort would have been enough, but not in this one. One evening, he called unexpectedly. "Hey," he said softly, "I didn't mean to bother you, I just wanted to tell you something." I hesitated. "What is it?" "I met someone," he said after a pause. His voice trembled slightly. "It's nothing serious, but I thought you should know." I felt something twist inside me, not jealousy, not anger, but something bittersweet, like closing a book you loved but can't reread. "I'm happy for you," I said, and I meant it. "Are you?" he asked, unsure. "Yes," I whispered. "You deserve to be happy." He sighed, relieved. "You do too, Sarah." After we hung up, I sat by the window for a long time, watching the city lights flicker. For years, I had imagined this moment, the day he would move on. I thought it would destroy me, but instead, it gave me peace. Because it meant we had finally stopped holding each other hostage in the past. Still, that night, I cried. Not out of regret, but out of gratitude for what we had, and for the strength it took to let it go. As time passed, I started rebuilding pieces of myself I didn't even know were missing. I painted again, something I hadn't done since college. I started running in the mornings, feeling the wind against my face, the rhythm of my heartbeat reminding me that I was alive. There were still lonely nights, of course. Nights when I'd wake up from dreams where everything was like before: his laugh, our home, the warmth of his hand, and for a few seconds, I'd forget everything that happened. But then reality would creep back in, and I'd lie there staring at the ceiling, whispering to myself, "You're okay now. You're okay." One Saturday morning, I found myself back at the lake, the place where I'd watched him with her, where my world had fallen apart. It was a bright spring day. The air was soft, filled with the smell of wet earth and blooming trees. The water shimmered, calm and endless. I stood there for a long time, watching the ripples move across the surface. It felt strange, standing in the same place that had once held so much pain, and feeling peace. I closed my eyes and whispered, "Thank you." Not to him, but to life for breaking me and for teaching me how to rebuild. A few weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. The handwriting was unmistakable. It was from Daniel. My heart raced as I opened it, the paper trembling slightly in my hands. "Sarah, I don't know why I'm writing this. Maybe because there are things that can't be said over the phone. Things that only silence and ink can hold properly. I wanted to thank you, not just for loving me once, but for letting me go when I didn't deserve your grace. I've spent months trying to forgive myself, but I think part of that process was realizing how much you taught me. You showed me what love really is and what it is. The new woman in my life knows about you. I told her the truth, that I broke something beautiful once, and that I still carry the weight of that mistake. She said pain makes people softer, not weaker. I think she's right. You were the best part of my life, Sarah. And even though I lost you, I'll always be grateful that, for a while, I got to call you mine. Take care of yourself. Always. Daniel. I sat there reading the letter over and over, tears falling silently onto the paper. His words didn't reopen old wounds, they closed them. I folded the letter gently and placed it inside my journal, not as a reminder of pain, but as proof of survival. Weeks turned into months again. Seasons changed. And then, one day, I realized I hadn't thought about him in a while. The memories had stopped feeling like open wounds, They'd become gentle echoes, reminders of who I was and who I'd become. It was late autumn when I met someone new, not through fate or grand romance, but simply in the most ordinary way. A colleague introduced us. His name was Michael. He was kind, quiet, patient. He didn't rush me, didn't ask for more than I could give. With him, love wasn't fireworks. It was a slow sunrise, steady, warm, healing. He knew about my past. I told him everything one night, voice trembling, afraid it would scare him away. But he just held my hand and said, "You don't have to be anyone else, just be you." For the first time, I believed it. Still, sometimes I'd catch myself comparing a familiar gesture, a tone, a laugh. Old habits die hard. But Michael never made me feel guilty for it. He just understood. One night, months later, I stood on my balcony watching the sunset. The sky was painted in shades of orange and pink, and I thought about how strange it was, the way life breaks you, then rebuilds you in shapes you never expected. I thought of Daniel, of our beginning, our end, and everything in between. I thought of how I had once loved him with every part of me, and how, in a way, I still did. But not as a wife, not as a lover. As someone who had shared a chapter of my life that changed me forever. And I smiled, because I finally understood something. Not all love stories are meant to last forever. Some are meant to teach you what love really means, what you deserve, and what you should never settle for again. As the evening breeze brushed my face, I whispered to the fading sky, "I forgive you." And then softer, "I forgive myself." That night, I pulled out my journal one last time and wrote. I used to think heartbreak was the end of everything, but now I know it's the beginning of becoming who you're meant to be. Love didn't destroy me, it shaped me. And though some endings still hurt, I'm grateful they happened, because without them, I wouldn't have found myself again. I closed the journal, set it aside, and turned off the light. In the dark, I could almost hear his voice, the way he used to say my name, soft and full of meaning. But it didn't hurt anymore. It was just a memory. A story that once was mine. And as I drifted to sleep, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because, for the first time, I finally was.